The wind whispers through the ruins of a city long gone. White marble columns lean in silence, their shadows long, and their carvings faded. Rome, the eternal city, lies quiet now. But beneath the marble, under the mosaics behind the triumphs, there were the forgotten. Not generals, not poets, not emperors, but hands, calloused, cracked, bound. Tonight, we won't walk with Caesar. We won't follow the legionnaires or the senators or the gods. We'll walk in sandals that are too small and too worn. Let your thoughts settle like dust in a quiet atrium. And together, we remember. We'll carry water in clay jars. We'll listen to the breath, to the footsteps, to the orders we cannot refuse. Step into the world of a Roman slave. Not as a history lesson, but as a life lived and endured. Let the world outside slow down. The day begins before light. The stones are cold beneath your feet as you rise from the mat of straw. There's no room to stretch, only the narrow space between crates and tools and another body still asleep. You dress quickly. The tunic itches. It's been passed down to many hands before yours. If you're lucky, you eat a bit of stale bread dipped in watered wine. If not, you wait until the chores are done, because in this life, your time is never yours. In ancient Rome, slavery was a meal, which you won't get to taste until after the masters are full. To gauge moods by the way doors close, you sing to yourself under your breath while scrubbing walls no one thanks you for. You survive because there is no choice. And sometimes in the stillness of night, when the household sleeps and the torches fade, you remember the sound of your own name. And that is enough to get through tomorrow. You're silent when spoken to, smiling when ignored, invisible when not needed. The master's son calls you by a name that isn't yours. The mistress forgets your face, though you've served her every morning for 3 years. You're bought and sold like linen, traded like livestock, listed on ledgers beside jars and jugs, and still you endure. You learn to memorize footsteps. I make these videos because history matters. But history isn't just kings and queens and famous people. History is also the sum of everyday lives. What did a slave's day look like? How did they feel about their lives? What kind of dreams did they have? We know the stories of some famous slaves like Spartacus or the Hebrew prophetess Deborah, but what were the lives of other slaves like? Slavery is an old institution. It first appeared around 5,000 years ago and existed in nearly every culture throughout the ancient world. So I'm asking you to do something. I know this is a lot to ask, but I believe you can do it. Not all the slaves stayed quiet. Not all the captives forgot their language. Not all the prisoners gave up hope. Some resisted, some rebelled, and one of them became a legend. His name was Spartacus. It's older even than Rome. It's It's as old as slavery itself. I know it sounds like a movie title. It is, but this story is older than any movie. It's older than the Colosseum. He dreamed of a world where a man could walk under the open sky without a master by his side. So he waited. And one night he escaped. Not alone. No, just survival. All they wanted was to keep living. To keep living, they fought. For 2 long years, they fought against the Roman army. They say he treated every opponent with respect, every human being, whether he fought alongside them or against them. He never took lives unnecessarily, never tortured prisoners. He never betrayed anyone. They fought against other armies. They fought against kings and queens, men and women, anyone who stood in their way. They lived on bread and water, if they wore rags. They smelled of sweat and blood, but they followed Spartacus. The legend says that 6,000 of his followers were crucified. That belief couldn't be crucified. Those bodies might have rotted, but their stories never did. Their bodies were left as signs along the roads, a warning to anyone who dared dream of rebellion. But did it work? Well, some accounts say it did. Most say it didn't. Why? Because he gave them hope. The hope to live another day. And Spartacus led them all. He led them through forests and mountains, across rivers and valleys, all over the Italian peninsula. Wherever he went, defeated armies followed. I'm waiting to hear them. Meanwhile, I have more stories to tell you. Go on, go back, go to the beginning, and start again, because every story matters. With 70 others, soon there were hundreds, then thousands. And Spartacus didn't just run away. He built an army. In songs and stories and paintings, wherever there were humans, there were tales of Spartacus. The gladiator who became a legend. He was a soldier. Then he got captured. Then he got enslaved. Then he got sold. Not to a farm or a house, to a gladiator school. You know, the place where they train people to fight and kill and bleed and perform? And Spartacus learned all that well. He learned to wield a sword. He learned to throw a net, learned how to survive. And for a while, that was his life. Just survive. Spartacus wasn't born to rebellion, not at first. He'd served in the Roman army once. But every night, when the moon hid behind clouds, Spartacus dreamed of something else. Now, if you ask me, that's the most heroic thing he ever did, because what was their goal? Conquest? No. Revenge. Rome first mocked him, then feared him. But in the end, they crushed him. Spartacus died in battle. His body was lost, but his memory remained. They say he was the greatest warrior of his time, undefeated in the ring, unstoppable outside of it. His followers, on the other hand, were called barbarians, uncivilized, uneducated, the scum of the earth. In the end, though, it wasn't enough. You see, Spartacus had woken up something in those people, a belief in themselves, in each other, and in a world that was worth fighting for. Do you know any stories like Spartacus? Stories of bravery, of courage, of rebellion against the system? The walls were speaking. They were screaming. They were begging. They told stories of hunger and hope, of fear and flight. Each block of stone was a witness, a crack in the plaster, a clue, and I felt like I was walking inside an open grave. Now, we're going to walk through the ruins of this ancient city, uncover the clues left behind in its walls, and discover what those clues tell us about life in Roman Pompeii. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome back, everyone. This is my channel. And last time, we stood at the gates of Pompeii just as the earthquake struck. At first, nothing. Just old graying paint. Everywhere I look, I see signs of work. Work in the round archways, work in the fountains, work in the crossed paths of cobblestone. The domina, or lady of the house, woke to warm water, not chores. Their lives were complicated, frustrating, and painful. But they were happy too. They laughed and loved and hoped for better days. If you like this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. See you next time. They welcomed strangers and celebrated victories. They raised families and wrote poetry. They played games and dreamed big dreams. And when I walk among these ruins, I see all of that. I see it in the baker's cold oven. I see it in the shoemaker's list. I see it in the frescoes on the walls, and I see it in the shadows beneath the stairs. The people of Pompeii are gone, but their stories are still here. They're in the dust beneath our feet. or in the ash that choked their streets, or in the walls that still stand, or in the whispers that linger. And if we listen closely, they'll tell us anything we need to know, if we know where to listen. She had slaves to dress her, slaves to write her letters, slaves to carry her parasol when she walked in the garden. She smelled of imported oils and spoke softly, not because she was kind, but because she never needed to shout. She could order punishment with a nod. She could change a life with the flick of a finger, but even she was not free. Her husband held the land. Her father had arranged her marriage. Her future depended on sons she might never bear. So she turned inward. She learned poetry, supervised feasts, whispered secrets to her most trusted maid, a woman who once nursed her and knew more about her than anyone else. They lived under the same roof, one in velvet, one in wool, one with a name carved in marble, one with no name at all. And yet, when illness came, it was the slave who stayed at her bedside. When the child cried, it was the slave who rocked them. When the master died, it was the slave who cleaned the body. And in the quiet that followed, as the house stood still, it was the slave who lit the final lamp and worked in the shadows beneath the stairs. People worked in this city, men, women, and children, free people and slaves. They worked in the fields surrounding the city, harvesting olives and grapes and figs. They worked in the shops, making sandals and bread and frescoes. They worked as servants, laborers, and artisans. And everywhere I look, I see signs of their labors. The furrows in the stone, the cracks in the fresco, the grooves in the mortar. But I also see something else. I see signs of rest. Families gathered on shaded balconies, lovers carved their initials into stones, friends tossed coins over the edge of the harbor, and those moments are just as valuable as the work. They're part of the story too, because life wasn't just about work, it was about play, it was about community, it was about connection. And Pompeii was a place where you could find all of that. You could find it in the forum, the center of civic life. You could find it in the bars, the brothels, and the bathhouses. You could find it in the streets. Just look for the graffiti. You could find it even in the amphitheater, roaring with excitement, or in the gladiators' barracks, silent and still. You could find it in the homes. You could find it in the kitchens where food hung from hooks and pots rested on hearths. You could find it in the bedrooms where lovers slept or families dreamed of better days. You could find it in the shadows beneath the stairs. You could find it in the corners of a room. It's in this place memory lingers. Laughter echoes and stories wait to be told. But look closer. Do you see that? Something is carved into the plaster here. Look carefully. Can you read it? It says, "Beware of dog." I'm sure you might think that's funny, but also imagine how surprised you would be if you were the one reading this. Imagine what it was like to walk down a street in Pompeii knowing that someone was watching you, waiting for you, and to make a move, to take something, to get too close, to stay too long. This wall was a warning. It was also a threat. You should probably keep moving. But if you've come to Pompeii to shop, what store would you visit first? How about a shoe store? They have sandals for men, women, even children. These tiny sandals would fit a little boy or girl. And we know they re-meant for a kid because the shoemaker kept their price list right by the door. The prices are written in charcoal. He was jotting down numbers the morning that he died. In this case, the math is easy. One sandal cost 8 bronze coins, 2 for 16. But this list doesn't just show us the prices. It shows us what a slave might wear. It also shows us what a slave might own. Because that same morning, the shoemaker wasn't just writing down prices. He was writing down names, and each name was paired with a number. He was keeping track of inventory. Sure, but he was also keeping track of people. People with names like Secundio and Felix and Pythagoras. People who might have walked into this store, picked out a sandal, worn it around the house, even walked down the street and left a scuff mark on the sole. After the eruption, archaeologists found that scuff mark, not on the sandal, but on the rock underneath the sandal, burned into the ash. There it was, forever marking the spot where someone stopped on their way to safety, grabbed a sandal, and then got lost in the dark. You can learn a lot by standing at the top of a volcano. Like, for instance, how big it is and how angry it can get. But if you want to know what's inside it, you have to go down. That's exactly what the Romans did. In the 1st century, digging into the mountainside here, at the base of Vesuvius, They cut out houses, shops, streets, even public baths. Over 11,000 people lived here, working, raising families, tending gardens. Many were slaves, were free, and some were waiting to be freed. All were trying to build a life. Here, between earth and ash, where the air tasted sweet, the soil was fertile, and the walls held echoes of laughter. Life was good until the earthquake rattled the foundations, shook loose the tiles on their roofs, and sent everyone running outside to stare up at the mountain, wondering what would happen next. We saw that last time. What happens next is up to you. Where do you run to? Who do you grab first? You try to fix your broken house, or leave and find somewhere safe? You can pause the video here if you want to make those decisions for these people. See where they run, see who they save, see if they survive. But there's no point dragging it out because we already know the ending. The mountain blew. Hot ash rained down. Homes turned to tombs. Body bags filled with pumice. And this neighborhood, which had been nestled in the shadow of the volcano, was buried in ash. What? In a place like this, you don't have to dig deep to find history. History finds you. It reaches out from every stone, whispers from every crack. I am in Pompeii today because I want to hear what it has to say. I want to listen to the stories in its bones. When archaeologists started excavating Pompeii, they uncovered a bakery here on the corner of two busy streets. At first glance, it looked abandoned. The oven was cold, the tools were dull, the floor was empty. But then they noticed something. Someone had been here just before the end. A customer, perhaps waiting for his bread to bake. He dropped a coin and then he ran. That coin is still here. It's lodged between two stones by the door. Maybe it was worth a whole loaf, maybe just a crust. But now it's worth much more. It's a lifeline to the past. It's proof that a real person lived here, breathed here, dropped a coin here. And if we know where that person sat, then maybe we can guess what he ate, what he drank, what he talked about. Maybe we can picture him waiting for his bread to bake. So now I'm going to sit right there on that stone floor and try to imagine what life was like in Pompeii. As I walk through the ruins, I'll look for clues in the most unlikely places. Like, what does this wall tell us? Pompeii is full of clues like this. It's things left behind in the rush to escape. And that gives us a special window into life in ancient Rome. We can listen to those stories if we know where to look. In the rooms above, life was slower. Life in Pompeii wasn't easy, but it was real. The people here weren't perfect. They argued and cheated and stole. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Tonight, you walked a path never carved in stone. You carried burdens, you knelt in silence. You fought, you fled, you served, and you stayed. Not as emperor, not as hero. You looked up at your mistress, and you knew you'd outlive her name. But as the hands that built empires and were never thanked, you remembered Spartacus, not as a myth, but as a man with broken chains. You listened to Pompeii's silence, and now the past is rest. Let your thoughts soften. Let the stories stay with you. Not loud, not grand, but true. It's a tapestry woven with the threads of courage, love, loss, hope, and resilience. You've walked among the gladiators of the Colosseum, marveled at the aqueducts and the Pantheon, strolled through the bustling markets of ancient Rome. You've seen the rise and fall of civilizations, felt the pulse of the city as it transitioned from the days of Caesar to the rule of Nero. Thank you for remembering what history tried to forget. Sleep well. You are free. Until we meet again in another adventure through time, may your days be filled with the wonders of discovery, and may your heart beat with the rhythm of history. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through time. It has been an incredible adventure to bring history to life for you and to see your enthusiasm for these stories has been the greatest reward. Read those books, watch those documentaries, visit the museums. Keep the past alive in your mind. Let the stories of yesterday inspire you today, and let them remind you of the power of the human spirit. It's about the everyday people, too, the common folk whose lives intertwined with the emperors, merchants, the artisans, the slaves, and the freedmen. Their stories, too, are part of the rich tapestry of the past. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to know that the past is more than just dates and battles. From the legendary Spartacus to the enigmatic Cleopatra, you've encountered individuals who, though long gone, continue to captivate us with their stories. I've had the privilege of being your guide, of introducing you to the fascinating characters who shaped our world. But it's not just about the famous faces. As you move forward in your journey through time, I encourage you to remain a student of history. The past is never truly gone. It's always with us, shaping our present and guiding our future. Thank you for being a part of this journey.